Hey guys, Pete here. We're going to give this another shot. We'll be having an in depth discussion about the Expanse Season 6, Episode 4. With Redoubt, we are at the 2/3 of the way through the season point, and it's the final season, and we have a lot of interesting stuff to unpack here. There were some great character exchanges that deserve a second look, and as far as the stream, hopefully the third time will be a charm. We're still new at this. We're still trying to improve each time we come back. And I think we can have a great conversation today. So thanks for being here and supporting the channel. I'm joined again by Benja from the Benja TV channel. You want to say hello?
Hi, Pete, and hi, guys in the chat. Welcome once again. And I'm excited to be doing this again. I can't believe we've only got 2 episodes left.
Yeah, it's really wild that it's just getting going. It feels like it's just getting going, but it's actually not. It's almost done, you know? It's a sad situation, but let's try to make the best out of it. We're going to be talking all things Expanse, all the seasons of the show, and the books up to Babylon's Ashes. But we will be limiting spoilers. We won't be going past anything that happened in this episode. So let's jump into it. We're going to also do the X-ray episode, the bonus episode with Clarissa Mal that was called Night Watch, and I think we should just start right there.
Yeah, and I think this is the 4th one we've got. Clarissa has the watch while everyone is asleep, and she finds out that her father, Jules Pierre Mao, has died. She's upset, so she activates her mods and trashes the kitchen. And then she records a heartbreaking journal after waking up, which shows us that she feels she still loves her father, even though he was a terrible man. And how do you feel about this one, Pete? How do you compare it to the other extra episodes?
Well, I mean, it had a hard job of following up what will probably be the best of these with Amos and Bobby. And it's a character that needs some development in some ways, you know. We know her as Melba. We're seeing this transformation mostly in relation to how she is next to Amos, how they interact together. So I think it was a good addition, and I was kind of happy that they gave an ending to Jules Pierre Mao because he was so important. That never really happened in the books. It was just sort of he was put away in prison. You kind of figured he would die there, but he was never really mentioned. So this was a good way to give us something with her. And it's a complicated situation, as is any relationship with any parent. So I thought it hit pretty well. What about I thought that I thought it was really cool how they used the cameras. Like there was some creative stuff here that I thought worked pretty well. What did you think about it in the overall terms of how they put it together?
Yeah, I think I liked it. And, this kind of fits with this whole family theme they've got going. Naomi's dealing with Filip. We've got the Marco Filip situation. In one of the previous episodes, we saw Avasarala listening to a message from her grandparents. So they've really leaned on this stuff. We also got obviously drummer and her ship. They're a family. So this family drama gets me going because this is kind of my favorite genre, family dramas. And Clarissa's, I guess, monologue here, her journal entry was quite emotional. And like you said, we didn't get a lot of character development for Clarissa outside of her interactions with Amos. So I thought this was good. She was on her own. And her reaction felt really genuine. So I liked it.
Yeah, I think that another angle on it is that whenever we see her by herself, you get that feeling of what it's like to live in space too, you know. They're out there, not much to do, and that life still goes on, you know. They're in the middle of a war. We've seen how stressed out they've been through all of this, and then this other thing that she has no control of happens, And, you were talking about how the families, how they're emphasizing the family. And I think that makes sense because this is the found family of the Rocinante, right? This is basically how the show is and the story is put together. And she's still on the outside of that, you know what I mean? She's still working her way in. And we'll talk about it a little bit later, how she gets this piece of information that, you know, that the captain did something, and that puts her in a really awkward spot too.
Yeah.
And the other thing is this idea of one ship, right? Where, the doctrine of one ship, they've kind of introduced all of these with that. That's kind of like people being, like the cells of an organism all working together, and in this case, she's still on the outside, but she's becoming part of the family. And at the
Yeah,
same
and
time, her other family, her real family is coming to an end, So I thought that was kind of a neat transition for someone to come into the crew.
yeah, it gives her closure. And we've got a super chat here from Tian Martin. Do you want to read this piece?
Okay. Hi and happy new year. Is it cruel or kind to show the Laconia scenes and bonus content, given that it's hurtling towards season finale? Yeah, I've always had to, kind of defer to you on this because you haven't read the books. You don't know where that's going. And I guess we'll
Yeah.
talk about that in a second. For a book reader, it is great to see this because one, I think it's a good story. I think it does add to what's going on, even though it's a little disconnected. But this is something we might not otherwise see if they never do the last three books. But we've talked about it in the past. It's kind of bittersweet at the same time, though, because it is setting up something that we're not guaranteed to see. So I'll just defer to you one last time on that if you want to add anything.
Yeah, I do think it's cruel, definitely, because they're teasing something that they might not be able to deliver. And but at the same time, you could view this as, as a little wink to us viewers that they do plan to follow up on this tease. So, you could look at it that way as well. But I think for now it's cruel because my hopes aren't high that this will continue.
It's a little bit of both, like most things in life, isn't it?
Exactly.
Well, thanks for the super chat. And
And
we'll get into, I think we could probably transition right into Laconia from there, huh?
Yep, exactly. We meet Admiral Winston Duarte in Laconia. He's the leader of the breakaway Martian fleet, and he pays his respects to Kara's family because her brother Zan has passed away. We talked about this last week. And when Duarte talks about dealing with grief, Kara wants to learn if he has lost a child, but he says he has lost a place, meaning Mars, or the dream of Mars. So what did you take away from Duarte's speech here, and what do you think about his introduction?
Yeah, I mean, this was big for book readers. Like, in the subreddit for the last few years, people have been talking about who might be cast, and it's a big deal, absolutely. And I thought the actor is not someone I had heard of before, but I thought he did a pretty excellent job, really, of capturing, because this guy is both kind of creepy and charismatic at the same time, isn't he?
Exactly. I mean, the way he speaks to Kara there, you know, who gives a speech like that to a kid like that? I don't really get that. You know,
Yeah, she's an 8-year-old. She's an 8-year-old. I
and
mean,
yeah, and he's speaking like he's giving a philosophy lecture or something. That
yeah.
was that was interesting. It definitely tells us something about Dorothy's character.
Yeah, and I thought the background. I think if you listen, if you turn up the volume and kind of pay attention to how they're eavesdropping on what the people are saying there, you know what I mean? I thought that was a nice touch because these people are there with him. They followed him there, the ones that are in his group, and they're talking about how this guy, he wrecked the cart. It killed this kid, and this is going to be something that they think he's going to be executed for. Did you pick up on that?
I actually didn't hear that until I watched your breakdown, which is one of the reasons I do. And that was a good spot because I didn't hear that, and I was kind of surprised because we did see, I think, that same guy almost running over Kara earlier in the season. So maybe it might be the same guy.
Yeah, I don't know if they confirmed it's the same driver, but it's the same situation for sure.
Yeah. We've got a great comment here because Justin Merritt says Aidan Gillen, the actor playing Littlefinger, would have been perfect. What do you think about that?
I think that he would be perfect in a lot of things. Yeah, I think the fan cast for this, because they kind of, his name's Duarte, and he's kind of a short and unassuming guy in the books from what I remember, and one of the characteristics that they note is that he has the pockmarked face. So there was a lot of talk of like Edward James Olmos playing this role and things like that.
Yeah.
But yeah, Aidan Gillen, that would have been a good one.
And I think we can continue because we see Cortazar again, the proto-molecule scientist. He interrupts their conversation, Kara and Duarte's conversation, to tell Duarte that his new coordination protocol returned a coherent reply pattern. Whatever that means, we'll get into that. And Cortazar believes he can turn it on. The camera cuts to the orbital platform, suggesting that the quote-unquote Corta, might have been something to do with what he's talking about. So, this part was really mysterious. What do you think they're planning? I think you kind of know, but
yeah, I know. So I can't say, but I just want to point out that I love how Cortazar is so focused, so single-mindedly focused. He's coming into a wake. People are upset and sad, and he can't contain himself. Like he's got a proto-molecule boner. You know what I mean? Like it's perfect. Like I really love this character. The idea that he was altered so that he's basically a sociopath, and this I loved his entrance here. And you brought it up that they showed the orbital platform. I don't think that that's really subtle. They're trying to say that this is the thing that he's trying to communicate with. What do you think that might mean? Like if we just take that as what they're showing us, what do you think that might mean as a non-book reader?
I guess my generic response would be it's an overpowered ship that's got a proto-molecule technology. So that would be my response. That's what I think at the moment. I haven't got much to go on, so I don't know.
Yeah, I mean,
it does look awesome, though. I mean, look at that thing.
Yeah, wow. The test case. I think the thing that you could keep in mind is the test case was Illis. That conversation with Babbage and Alex last season when she was really trying to pick his brain about what happened when they brought the protomolecule to Illis. They're trying to recreate that situation here.
Huh.
And if you remember, it didn't actually go very well whenever they turned it on. And
but because Cortazar is involved in this situation and they seem to have been doing this for a long time, I think this one might go well. And that's
certainly their hope.
Oh, I don't know. Then yeah, things might turn sour.
Well, I mean, I'm not saying either way. I'm just saying that that's why they did what they did. That's why they brought Cortazar with them, is that outside of Holden, this guy has the most experience with studying the protomolecule. And so, you know what I mean? That's the whole reason that he's there.
All right, I think we can talk about Kara now because, as anticipated, she takes her brother's body into the forest, no doubt trying to fix him using the strange dogs. There's no subtlety here really because they've set this up really well. I'm still thinking if he's gonna turn into a hybrid because we talked about this last week, and I think it's pretty clear that these strange dogs don't just revive things suddenly, but they do, but they change them as well. They add a different element to them. Maybe that element is the prana molecule. I don't know, but and you know where this is heading. So I want to pick your brain on this.
Well, I just wanted to look at it this way. The one of the things that I loved about this book when I first read it, this novella, it's really short. Anyone can read this in a couple of hours, maybe, I don't know how many, I can't remember how many words it is, but it's a very short and complete story in a lot of ways. But the thing I love about it is it's from an 8-year-old girl's perspective. She's the one that's experiencing these things. If her parents or Cortazar or someone else had seen this bird brought back, they would think, okay, well, that is creepy. That's something that we need to study and be careful with because we wouldn't want that to happen inadvertently. She's a little kid and she's just looking at it like, hey, you know what? I got a problem. I got this brother, he's dead. And a couple of days ago, I had a problem where my drone was broken and then the mother bird died because I accidentally fed her some food from Earth. And yeah, this might work. So it's kind of that situation. And, people point out that why is she running around in the woods on this planet by herself? And how can she just roll this body out here? Like you're gonna have to give it a little bit, I guess, but that's also sort of the point. If someone who was a full-grown adult with with any kind of sense experienced this, it would have all gone very differently. And I like that. I like the idea here that it's crazy what she's doing.
Especially
You
going
shouldn't
out at
do
night.
this. Yeah, you should not do this. This is ill-advised to mess with things like that you don't understand, but it's a perfect comparison of what Duarte and Cortazar are trying to do with the protomolecule in general, and Jules Pierre Mal before them. You know what I mean? In a lot of ways, humanity is sort of worse than little kids when it comes to the protomolecule. They just can't help themselves.
Agreed. And we've got a question from Disco 70. I'm only up to mid-book 4. Would it ruin the story if I read Strange Dogs now?
Not necessarily. I mean, if you've watched the show this far, then I would say no. You know what I mean? Because you already know that you already basically know what happens in book 5 from the TV show. So yeah, if you're only reading and it wouldn't make sense that you're here watching this stream if you were doing that. I would say it wouldn't really spoil anything major there that you haven't already seen in the TV show.
Yeah, and I just wanted to say that this Ceres scene I thought would have come earlier in the episode, and we would maybe see the end result of what happens to Zan. So Duarte's introduction delayed this for a little bit, and I think this is gonna go until the end of the season, and we will see what happens to Zan at the end of the season. So maybe I thought we'd see this episode or the next one, but looks like that's gonna take a while.
Yeah, there's definitely one of these in both of the upcoming episodes that starts off the thing, and I won't really say anything more about that, but it gets somewhere.
All right. Do you have anything to add on this, or should we move to Ceres?
I think maybe we can come back and talk a little bit more about Duarte at the very end. I don't want to derail. I do want to talk about that situation a little bit more, but I think it makes sense if we come back to that, or if anybody has any specific questions, because we got a lot of stuff in the main episode that we still have to look at.
Okay, and I think it's time to talk about Ceres now, because the Belters are still making a stand there against the Inners, where dozens of UN Marines and Martians died after last week's attack. Karina would like to up and leave. She wants to turn their attention towards Ring to take back Medina, but Avasarala does not believe they would be able to do that. They don't have enough firepower, she thinks. Nonetheless, we see that the Martians will attempt this takeover on their own. So what do we think about this disagreement? Who do you side with here?
I mean, it's hard to say if one is right or wrong. They're two different approaches. I think what's interesting is that Carino got that message from MCRN command, and that they're willing to do that on their own. It kind of underlines the idea that these are two different factions. They're working together, but they're not exactly like-minded in their in what they're thinking about. And I just wanted to mention the Sandrani thing in the beginning, because when I first saw this, I was kind of like, why? I couldn't kind of get where she was coming from. And what did you think about the fact that they were just attacked by the Free Navy, but here she is in the public square talking about don't side with the Inners?
I found this realistic because this is the Belter mindset, rightly. They don't trust the Inners, and just because Marco, I suppose, betrayed them, does not mean they should just side with their enemy. I mean, I think
that's what I was getting at, because we can see in episode 5 that's upcoming. I was making the teaser video yesterday, and we kind of see that is Drummer's situation that she's going to be facing. So yeah, I thought this was a pretty interesting little scene that's just sort of in there, where you're thinking, well, that's crazy. How can you not? This guy just he's behind the explosions, you would imagine. That's what they said when they were talking. Their Belter made charges. So it's kind of wild that, even though you see everything that's going on, it's still kind of hard to understand just what a tough situation that is for them, politically.
Looking at this from their perspective, I mean, what happens if they just defeat the Free Navy and kill Marco, and the Inners take control? They go back to square one, maybe even worse, because there's a catastrophic situation on Earth. Supplies are running low. Food is hard to come by. So what's going to happen to the belt if the Inners regain control? The Belters have to think for themselves. So yeah, I think Sandrani's points make sense.
Yeah, and we were talking about Carino. It's a little bit of a character flip for her, because she was the one that was back in season 3 when she was there the first time. She was the one that was kind of like level-headed and didn't jump in to the battle that was going on there, when she had a clear advantage to kind of capitalize in that situation. So it's an interesting twist in that character's development. And I don't think that you could say that either one is. I don't think you could say who's right or wrong there, or if even anyone is, but you kind of see both of them, like the points that they're making.
Indeed.
We had a couple of super chats here. I just wanted to, before we move on there, it says Sean Doyle landed a top role on Star Trek Discovery. Seems like they are co-opting concepts from the Expanse and actors. This isn't a show that I'm familiar with. Have you watched this?
Unfortunately, I've seen a few episodes, but I wouldn't recommend it. But I think Sean Doyle is Aaron Wright, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, and he's a great actor. He's a Canadian actor. Obviously, a lot of these people they shoot in Toronto, so a lot of these actors come from that area. And I don't think I really appreciated his performance the first time I watched the show, but every time I rewatch, I always pick up on he does a great job in that role. I mean, he's not a likable character in any way, really, but
yeah, but he's
he's
the reason.
he's a
He's the reason what.
well-defined character.
Yeah, he's the reason why we like Avasarala so much, because she had to overcome a person like Aaron Wright, as far as I remember.
Yes, I think that it's good. I think he should be in more shows. That's what I would say about the super chat. You know what I mean? I think that he would add to any cast from what I've seen in his work in The Expanse.
We've got another super chat, but I'm not sure if you want to read that because YouTube doesn't like a certain
Yeah,
word in there.
I am a little bit apprehensive about doing that.
But Alex Tyler
I
Gaming,
appreciate Yeah, I
thank you
appreciate
nonetheless.
the $5, but I'm not even sure that could be bait to get that, a misinformation kind of thing going on.
Yeah.
It's like playing a song that you don't have the rights to.
Exactly.
Don't do that.
I think we can move on to the Roci now. It's still on its way to Ceres. There's an Alex tribute here because they're playing his song. I think Bobby is. And also Clarissa finds out that it was Holden who disarmed the torpedo that was about to destroy the Pella. She shares this information with Amos, who says he will handle it. We will dive deeper into this later on, but I just want to ask you how you react to this bit about Alex. And also, what did you think about Clarissa keeping this under wraps and only sharing it with Amos?
Well, I think the song, the tribute to Alex, I think it's an ongoing reminder that they're doing a pretty good job with a kind of terrible situation that they found themselves in. It's a nice callback to that. I don't remember the name of or which episode it was, but the old episode where he's in the ship when they're on, I think they're on Io or Ganymede, and he's just waiting for them, and he has the music cranked up, and he's like doing tricks in the 0G. Do you remember what I'm talking about?
Yeah. I think people have done some montages with that.
Yeah, so it's another instance where they're giving us final season vibes. You know what I mean? Pulling on strings from the previous seasons in a way that I mean, they always kind of do that. There's always a lot of foreshadowing and reconnecting callbacks and things like that. But I think these ones have a very specific final season kind of feel to them, and I thought this one was great. And it's nice that they're able to that they're like the biggest thing when you hear 6 episodes is you're thinking, okay, this is going to be so rushed. They're going to just ignore the character stuff. It's going to be all hitting the plot points and rushing to the end. And I think this is something that's great to see, that they still take time to do something like that.
Yeah. This season is full of interesting character developments, and they do a good job of I guess developing some relationships as well, because they give Naomi and Holden a lot of time. We've got Avasarala and Monica. Their little arrangement is interesting. There's Marco and Rosenfeld. I'm not saying relationships in a romantic sense, but you get what I mean. They're giving this They're giving this stuff a lot of airtime.
Yeah, I think that like I said, the biggest fear that you worry about, like if you think about the classic example that everybody compares everything to right now in this time, and it's the Game of Thrones ending.
Oh my god!
That was a trend that happened
Why
in
would
that
you bring that
show.
up, Pete?
Well, I'm just trying to make a comparison because I still see comments. Every video of the Expanse I put out, I still see comments where people are comparing those two things. And I just think that the thing there is that they started jumping from set piece to set piece. They just were hitting the points on the way to the end. I
Yeah.
feel like this kind of scene right here is a great example of how the Expanse is not doing that. And
Yeah.
I don't think that so far, anyways, we haven't seen like really strange leaps forward in the plot, in the structure of the way the episodes are set up, that that it's losing something on either end.
Now, for example, Clarissa isn't just suddenly one of the guys, one of the gals. She has to be developed, and they're giving her time. It's been 4 episodes, and she's just now getting it together with Holden. So they're really patient with this character stuff.
Yeah, I think it's it's great, and I'm happy that I'm not happy that it's coming to an end, but I'm happy that they're at least putting that kind of attention to these people because that's what the story's about. So we have a super chat here. It says, to me, Sandrani's outrage and distrust doesn't feel earned in this scene and doesn't fit the character. Well, I kind of get what you're saying there, and that I think that Sandrani and Rosenfeld are 2 points in this final season that are it's tough because we never heard of these people before, and now they have to carry a lot in that they're belters that are connected to the Free Navy, because obviously we need those people. They're in charge, and I don't know if it I guess, yeah, I mean, I guess I can see your point. It's your experience. I thought that Sandrani, I thought there would, when I first watched the season, I thought that there would be I thought one of the my guess was that one of the X-ray episodes would have been with Sandrani to give us a little bit more about how she became, how they became, in that position, or how they developed that point of view. But I think that it, on the second time through it, it worked a little bit better, but that's where they didn't really have time to develop all the new characters. It's sort of like the guy who walks around with Avasarala too. I think his name is Gareth.
Yeah.
He just kind of he's just there all of a sudden. He would have been the guy Delgado last season. If you look at those two characters, Delgado was definitely a lot more of a character that you felt like you knew by the end of the season. Gareth is just sort of there, right?
Yeah, this is where 10 episodes would have been ideal, because it would have given them, what, 3 more hours to develop these characters. Oh, yeah.
Yeah. There's legitimate issues with certain things as far as COVID and the way that affected some of the ways, what I thought affected some of the characters that they might have brought back or didn't bring back. And yeah, I think the Free Navy side characters are a little underdeveloped from what I would like to see. But if the trade-off is that we get more drummer and we get more of the core crew, I mean, which would you rather?
I mean, that's an easy decision, to be fair.
Right? It's not really. It's almost rhetorical in that sense,
Exactly.
isn't it?
Exactly. Yeah, I wanted to answer Jeff Beeler's question here before we move on to the Pella. He asks, who has played the Expanse computer game? What is it like? It hasn't come out yet. It's gonna be a couple of years before it does. But I'm gonna touch on this game more when we get to the supply depot scene with Drummer. So I think
Okay.
now we can move on to the Pella. Marco wants the 2 most senior members of the Lauber crew spaced because they failed in battle against the Roci. and while Filip has been reassigned to be a repair technician. This was a surprise. And Rosenfeld feels like Marco is a little bit rattled and that he needs Filip by his side to remain calm. So she has a word with Filip to convince him to apologize to Marco, even though she accepts Filip was right. And Filip remains stubborn. And goes on with his repair job. So, what did you think about Marco's decision here? It did seem way too harsh for me. So, I want to hear what you think about this.
Yeah, the way I interpreted it was that he did this thing. It was obviously an unforced error, and now he wants to shift the blame to someone else. And, that's a pretty dramatic way to do that. I think it's ill-advised. Obviously, you only have so many people that you can count on, that you can trust here. I'm not a military tactician. I've never been in a spaceship, but I don't think that what they were hit by the railgun shot the first time that they flipped around and did it. And I don't know. It seems like they're kind of carrying the weight of Marco making an emotional decision to go after the Rocinante when they didn't even need to be there.
Yeah, and I think we can touch more on Filip by mentioning Tadeo, the repair technician Filip's working with. They got on with their work, and I really enjoyed this sequence because it gave us a look at the daily life of a crew member on board a spaceship. And Tadeo's personal story was interesting as well, because he talked about how his brother saved him from becoming a failure, and this made Filip realize how different his situation would have been if he wasn't Marco's son. And Tadeo suspects that his brother died on Ceres when the explosions happened, so that's why his personal story is interesting. And what did you make of these two guys?
Yeah, there's a ton of stuff in this little conversation that they have, and it's funny because this is one of those scenes where they have this like video game kind of thing where he's putting there's like this really technical part of this scene that is kind of completely unnecessary in a lot of ways. You know what I mean?
I think this is just the Expanse showing off.
That's the one when I did the review, I said I think there was the one scene that it just seems like, okay, you guys are just showing off here with this, you know what I mean? And this is what it was, because these two are like, just recently, Filip's father told him that the people on Ceres are all basically soft, they're weak, they only are there living high on the hog because they're following Earth and doing their bidding or whatever. And it was here he's talking about his brother who is dedicated to the cause, but he just can't go into space. You know what I mean? He has this condition where he experiences vertigo. So you have that. Filip says, "Oh, so I guess not everyone, he thinks in his head, not everyone on Ceres is like different in that way or whatever." And then you have Filip is a child soldier, right? That's the only life he's known. And you see him here, he's interacting with somebody, just a regular person. He's doing a regular job, and you see that he has that feeling of accomplishment as he's, flying this drone around or whatever it is. And it's kind of like, it's kind of sad that he's getting a taste of that, but that he's not really ever going to be free of his, this lifestyle that he was born into.
Yeah, I think this is gonna have a tragic ending for Filip, because we'll also talk about what Naomi thinks of Filip later on, but it kind of feels like to me that Filip's story is basically a tragedy, and as you know, tragedies end with a death, and this is where his story is heading.
Yeah, and I like these little looks into Belter life. Like they did that really well, I think, with the news feeds a couple episodes back. This gives us a look inside, and then we'll talk about it in a little bit. But the Lucky Earther cat guy later, there's a lot of there's a lot of there's a lot of human stories mixed in with all of what's happening, and it's another part where it's nice to be able to get a little bit of a glimpse of that as a counter to the actual fighting that's going on.
Okay, I think we can move on to the Roci if you haven't got anything to add. Well, we should say that they recovered the warhead as well. I
Yeah,
forgot to mention that. That's kind of
yeah,
important. And the way that they messed with Filip here was absolutely hilarious because I thought he was serious at first too.
absolutely. If there's a nuclear missile right there, you're gonna think he's serious. I mean, I believe that Philip thought he was serious, if nothing else, right?
Exactly.
Do you what did you think about them recovering this? Did this seem just like normal everyday work on a ship, or do you think there's some bigger significance? Because I had a ton of comments that I read where people were theorizing that this nuclear warhead was going to be important later.
I think they say that they're just going to use this later on because it's not damaged. It's not damaged. It was disarmed. So
Mm-hmm.
maybe this is going to be used to kill an important person in the story, but I don't think so. I don't think that's where this is heading. I think they're just going to leave this behind. Maybe it will impact, Filip, because he later learns in the episode that it was disarmed by Holden. So maybe this warhead will impact his decisions going forward, Filip's decisions. But the missile itself, I don't think is going to play an important role. That's the feeling I have.
Okay, yeah, and like you said, we'll come back around to that whenever we talk about the last scene where he gives his little tries to call on raise the morale of the troops or whatever.
Yeah. And at the on the Roci, Amos and Holden have a chat as they work on the PDC. And Amos can't figure out how what Holden did was the right thing to do in that situation. Because he expects Amos expects Holden to do the right thing. Nothing is resolved here because Holden cannot just justify his decision that easily. So I wanted to ask what you thought about this confrontation.
Well, yeah, I love this. This is one of the first, and the first time I watched it, this was one of my favorite Amos Holden interactions. Maybe in most. There's a lot of good ones over the years, obviously, but out of the recent ones, this one they set it up a little bit in episode 1 where he tells him that he follows him. He's out there because he wants them not to think about the thing that's going on at the rings with the ships because they don't have to worry about that. He's out there to back him up because he believes in him and he doesn't want that, he doesn't want anything to happen. And this is like, from his point of view, this is a huge betrayal, right? I mean, he
Can, can,
is.
can you think about?
It,
Can you think of how he would react if this was, I don't know, in season 2 or maybe even in season 1?
Right, and we did actually see him react to being betrayed in the same way with Naomi. Naomi, like the thing about Amos is he doesn't trust his moral compass. He doesn't trust his ability to make the right decisions. So he picks these people, he puts them on a pedestal, and he says that I'm going to try to do what I think Naomi would do in this situation. I'm going to be completely loyal and back them up. And then whenever I have to make a decision, I'm going to try to do what I think that she would do. That's where he was whenever he came in as a crew member of the Rocinante. In time, he came to do the same thing with Holden. So right here, that's the cognitive dissonance that he's dealing with, right? He's saying, I expect that maybe to a fault in some points, that you're always going to do what you think is the right thing and what's best for everybody. And now I can't make this, I can't put it together in my head. I can't make this work. And it's fantastic because Holden can't either. It was an emotional decision. He did something, it was selfish as far as the big picture, as far as ending the war. It was a thing that was he's only thinking about himself and about his relationship, about someone he cares about. And we'll come back to that. But yeah, I really liked it. And I liked how he kind of gave his friend, his captain, yes, but also his friend, a possible way out. He said, I could just take you out of fire control.
Yeah, so that
I'll just do it for you. You won't have to make a decision. It'll already be done. And
yeah,
I don't know. What did you think about? I had some people mention in the comments that they thought it was wild that Holden told him that he didn't owe him an explanation. What did you think about that part of it?
I think and I think Holden normally wouldn't do that, but as we said, they've been out here for 6 months now, more than 6 months, and we've noticed that he doesn't look that good now, both physically and mentally. So maybe this is his way of lashing out, I suppose, because normally he could have explained the situation to Amos, and I think Amos would have understood. He'd still want Pete. He'd still want Holden to go through with killing Marco, but I think Amos would have understood if Holden just explained the situation. But because he's been out here, he's not in the right mindset, meaning Holden. So I think that's why he said he doesn't need to justify his actions. I'm the captain now. That's kind of what he said.
Yeah, you kind of think about how Drummer with her crew, is it like, are you my wife right now or are you my captain? I kind of took it as him just being like, look, I'm the captain of this ship. When I make a decision, right or wrong, it's the decision. And he knew he couldn't justify it. Amos pulled him out. He pulled him up on that a second later, saying, are you mad because I brought it up, or are you mad because you don't have an explanation? So I just thought it was, a really great back and forth. And it's a situation where there isn't really any resolution. There can't be. He did what he did. He can't make that make sense for Amos because it doesn't.
Exactly. And they discuss this further with Naomi as Holden goes back to his quarters. She's not happy about this either when she learns about it, because she has already tried to save her family and Filip, but it hasn't worked out. She has chosen her new family, meaning the Roci, and she has made her peace with the fact that Filip might die if the Free Navy loses the war. So she had already made her decision, and she doesn't want Holden to spare Filip just to spare her feelings. And I thought this was one of the better scenes of the episode because Naomi was absolutely right to point that out. Holden kind of made her responsible for what Marco might do next. So I was completely with Naomi on this one. Who do you side with here?
Yeah, I mean, it's another one where you can't side with Holden here. Like objectively,
Exactly.
it's a bad choice. Even if you take everything out of it, I mean, you can't justify what he did under any other reason except for that he didn't want to see Naomi go through that. And she's absolutely correct in saying that you don't get to decide that. She's there. She went and she tried to save her son. That didn't work out. And now through his decisions in trying to protect her or whatever whatever his justification is, he's making her complicit in whatever happens after the fact. And that's pretty messed up. You know what I mean? That's not, she's going through enough. Does she really need to be responsible for the fact that the Free Navy goes and has a mass casualty event where, thousands of people, tens of thousands of people die? That's kind of on their hands at this point.
Absolutely. I mean, not on their hands, I think Holden's.
Yeah, but I
Just
mean, but he said, but in saying that he did it because of her.
Oh yeah,
because of not wanting to be the person to kill her son.
Yeah, I was talking from an objective standpoint. Naomi will feel the way you describe it, but from an objective standpoint, it's just Holden's fault. But I agree with you that Naomi will feel that way.
Yeah, and I like that they they created this situation. And you got to say, Holden is having a day here, isn't he?
Yeah.
The last two conversations he had, and I mean, and he deserves it. It's all because of the choices he made. It's not like he's being, called out unjustifiably or whatever. But it's like, I like that they made these kinds of human situations where you can't really, like, you can't get behind what he did, but you understand why he did it. Does that make sense?
Yeah. You know the reason why, but yeah. But you don't agree with it. I get it.
Yeah, like you based on the choices, if you look at it and you say, okay, this is going to happen or that's going to happen, you can't do what he did. But as a viewer, as someone that's engaging with the story, you can 100% understand why he did it when he explains it from his perspective.
Yeah, we've got another super chat, by the way. Please.
Holden still has the codes this is from Sam Jovi. Thank you for the $5. Holden still has the codes to the nuke now on the on the Pella. I think that could turn the deactivation in episode 3 to an assist if he triggers it later.
I don't think that's possible.
Yeah, I saw this. I saw this. A lot of different people thought this. I mean, they're on a Martian ship. I would think if they can take control of it and repurpose it, then they would have control over the codes at that point. But
yeah, the Pella.
I mean, it's kind of like not really. I'm kind of just putting that together in my head because it seems like that's not, I don't think it was intentional. I think that we see that emotionally why he did that. He explains that. So is it possible? I mean, it might be technically possible, but I don't think that's where they're going with it.
Yeah, and if the technicians on the Pella, reprogram the missile, it should be impossible. And I think they would.
Yeah, like I said, we're just making up stuff about.
Yeah, it's not a real thing anyway. So
it's not scientific. This isn't backed with science at all.
Just speculation. I think we can speculate about Clarissa's diet choices now because her salt obsession is quite the thing. We see her and Holden have a conversation where she tells Holden to never feel bad for not killing somebody, and this is different from Holden's other interactions because Clarissa is quite supportive because she had a cause and killed people because of that, and that has damaged her forever. So she understands why Holden couldn't go through with that, couldn't go through with killing Filip. And the connection these two share, Clarissa and Holden, continues to grow stronger each week. I wasn't sure how she would fit in, but it's fair to say she has exceeded my expectations so far. And this was another great example of that. How did you feel about this particular conversation?
Yeah, it was great. I don't know. It would be hard to rank these different conversations because he has three epic showdowns with the different crew members. I think that it's, and the history that they have together and the way that they open this up, she says, "Do you want to know the time when I decided I wasn't going to kill you?" And this is something that I saw not that long ago whenever I was working on the drummer video. That scene, that's a callback to something that actually happens on screen. You see her make that decision on the behemoth as everything's coming to an end in season 3. So their history, it makes it kind of absurd in a way that he would even be in the same room listening to her, or that she would have the right thing to say at this really stressful juncture in his time as the captain of the Rocinante. I think that I don't think that what she says is I think what she what she says is really useful for where he's at the moment, right? He's it's the thing he needed to hear, although I don't think it's really an endorsement on the way what he did either. Does that make sense?
Yeah, you need. I think Clarissa knows you need friends like that too, because they can't just all bash Holden. So he's just trying to. Yeah, she's just trying to boost his morale. I get why.
Yeah.
I get why she's doing it.
Yeah, and she's, out of everyone on the crew, she has her regrets are front and center. She's trying to atone herself, her previous actions, and so he knows the place it's coming from, even though he's not really as opposed to her as a person in the TV show as he is in the book. He's really not comfortable with her being there for a long time in the books, but still they have that history, so it gives it a different it's not the same as if someone else said it. So I thought that this was great, and I really liked how she was dumping the salt on her food at the end, and he's just kind of looking at her like.
Seriously.
And I think that I think when this series started, I wasn't sure about Stephen Strait as an actor. I thought I thought he filled the role that what he was being given, but I think when I watched this episode, I got a different appreciation for his. I think he's a lot better than he used to be. I think he's doing things that maybe they didn't even ask him to do before, and he's been up to the challenge. I think it's. What do you think about how these two interact as actors?
Huh. And I can't really. I think almost every single actor on this show has gotten better over the course of these seasons, because so I'm not sure if that's really if that only goes for Steven Strait, because when they started out, none of them were that famous. So I think most of the main characters, at least, have gotten better.
Yeah, I
but
would agree on that
their
too.
interactions overall, Clarissa and Holden, I think I like them. I think they're the best thing on. They're one of the best things on the Roci this season.
Yeah, it's a little bit lighter. That I think that benefits things too, because even though she tried to kill him and she can talk about that and he can listen about that, it's still a little bit lighter because they're still getting to know each other. Whereas with Amos, there's a lot of history. With Naomi, there's a lot of history, and there's stakes in that because they're a couple. So it's a nice addition to the dynamics there. And we have a super chat Another $5 from TM Martin. Thank you for that. What are your top 3 ships on the Expanse season 1 through 6? Do you want to
You
take a
like?
stab at that?
I just wanted to say that I know how much you like ranking things, so this question is just for you.
Yeah.
I wanted to say Medina Station is my favorite. I'm not sure if we're calling that a ship, but
Well, it was a generation ship first. It was the Naboo.
yeah,
And
that's my favorite. But I don't know. I don't know how to rank the others. I guess the Roci has to be there in my top 3.
yeah,
I can't decide on the other one.
I think as far as just cool looking technology, I think that the stealth ships and the I'm trying to think of the class. It's a Egyptian class. I can't think about it, but yeah, the Anubis was a cool looking ship, especially in the early seasons. And I always thought that the Donager class was the coolest looking as far as the way it looks on the screen, as far as the big ships. The Roci, yeah, it has the sentimental factor. How could you not put that on the list? But the Pella looks pretty cool as well. So all of them are. I mean, it's yeah, like you said. I'm not a big on ranking things, but I think that you have to give the Anubis sort of like the exotic, the exotic. The design is definitely of itself. You know what I mean? It's different than everything else. And then I just think the Donager class look like a city floating around in space with a lot of, it's just completely death machine at the same time. You know what I mean? I think that's really cool. And then we'll give the Roci the final spot on that.
They definitely got the coolest looking ship on in television or movie history. I think. Yeah, not even close.
Yeah, they were smart in making it, functional rather than just cool looking.
Exactly. And functional can be cool too. I mean, that's the thing.
Absolutely.
I think we can move on to Drummer and her crew. This is what I think is the best sequence of the week. They have arrived at the spun up supply depots, and the way they all line up here before they go in, with an incredible piece of soundtrack playing in the background, made this a bona fide Expanse moment even before all the action. Just when they were just not standing, floating in space.
Yeah.
It was awesome. Did you get the same amount of goosebumps I got here, Pete?
Yeah, absolutely.
When the scene first started.
Yeah, this was one that I didn't really know how to visualize it until I saw what it was. Like the whole idea of the supply depot and the shipping, like made out of the shipping containers kind of thing. And like you said, the opening part where it's sort of like, it's sort of like a heist movie or something where they show up at the location, the band of people that are gonna break in, and they're looking at it from a hillside on the distance or whatever. Only instead here we have them floating in their vac suits looking on. And I loved how they shot that in the beginning. And then one of my favorite parts of this was you're looking at you have a shot of Kamina and you see her faceplate, and the first time you see the structure, you see it reflected in her faceplate going by. You see it moving by in that, and you're sort of like, it's colorful because they're all different containers that are of different colors. So there's this thing that appears on her faceplate, and then you get the idea of what's going on. So I thought that was super cool.
Next, they make their way to the depot, but there are guards protecting the containers, and they ambush Drummer and company. And Joseph is pinned under a crate as a cause. His arm is crushed, and they can't move the crate because he would bleed out. They need a medic, so they need Michio. She arrives to resolve the problem, but Joseph's arm is crushed once again after they pry the crate up to apply a tourniquet. and because of this, Michio has to amputate his arm to save him. Now, I definitely wasn't expecting this much gore, but I was glad to see it. I don't know if that's the right way to express myself, but this scene really made me happy for some reason. And I'm not big on gore, but seeing this here, it was just awesome. What did you think about this action sequence?
Yeah, it was a great setup. The whole idea of them going inside and the shootout, that was pretty basic, that wasn't it was fine. It served its purpose, but the whole thing went to a different level whenever he gets pinned underneath this crate. And it's a couple of things at the same time. It's showing us the reality of how crazy it is to be in space and how quickly things can go wrong, and you're going to die if that happens, right? And then we also have Michio was earlier in the season, they were going to throw her off the ship because they didn't have she wasn't ready for the battle. That's what they were thinking. So now she can use her skills to come in and save the day, and it's all a part of this idea of the one ship, the family. Everybody has a role to play, and as you said, I was not expecting it to get like what it got. Like when he's stuck, I'm thinking, oh yeah, okay, makes sense. You can't move the crate because he'll bleed out. The pressure is keeping the blood inside of his body, so you have to tie off a tourniquet. I didn't think that they were going to cut his arm off until they cut his arm off. Whenever she said to him, "I love you. I'm sorry." I mean, it was great. And then Walker, I didn't catch it the first time I watched it, but what does he say? He says,
F in heck,
tough work, or I don't think I put it in the notes, but he calls her cargo because he was brought into the story because he was going to transport her away. You know what I mean? So that was just, like I said, that guy, he just makes his lines count, doesn't he? Every single one.
Oh yeah. Do you remember the one about the revolution? About a revolution worth having?
Uh-huh. Yeah. If you don't get rich, what's the point, right?
Exactly. That was an awesome line. He doesn't, like you said, he doesn't speak a lot.
Bit later. Yeah.
Yeah, he doesn't speak a lot, but he makes them count.
Yeah, they all hit. He just comes in, and when they need to deliver something, he just comes in and does it.
I also liked, how Michio wasn't really scared of violence, but because she's a medic, so she can do this because she's saving somebody's life. But when she has to destroy a ship, when they're going, I think that was in episode 1 when Michio just froze, couldn't do it, couldn't go through with it. Destroying a life and saving a life is two different things, and she was ready to show us that gore, let's just say, to save Joseph's life. So yeah. they need Michio as well. I think this underlines that fact. Michio might not be ideal for them in a one-on-one situation when they're fighting another ship, but they're gonna need a medic like her, who's willing to do what's necessary. So Michio in this episode was great as well.
Yeah, I think she did, like you said. I would agree with everything that you said there, and I think it does. It's another one of those things that you can draw parallels to what's happening in this little family here, and the way that they're understanding that to the bigger picture as well, because Marco is in a position where he's not going to give up the bit of power that he's grabbed. He's not going to give that up without a fight, and nobody's going to come in and fix it by themselves. You know what I mean? That people are going to have to work together in order for that to happen.
All right, I used the word goosebump a few minutes ago, and I don't want to repeat myself, but I have to because drummer sends out a message on a wideband channel, and Carriage's delivery is simply exquisite. She goes, "This is Camina Drummer, and this message is for the traitor, the coward, Marco Inaros. You hunted me and mine, and still we are here, unbent, unbroken, unbowed. And you are nothing." Obviously, I can't do justice to that quote, but let's just get your thoughts on it, Pete.
Yeah, this is. I liked how this came from her watching, as you know, they put this sleeve of regrowth gel on Joseph. He's still in a lot of pain. Michio's there for him, for as a husband, as his wife, as his crewmate, as his you know nurse, I guess, or doctor, whatever role that is that she's taking on there, a medic. And she takes this and she goes out and she's like, you know what? I'm tired of this, Marco. This is the belt. This is us. This is who we are. We're not that. We're not what Marco's doing, leaving people behind, taking their supplies and hiding them out in space to save for later, just in case they're needed. People are suffering right now. I'm going to do something about it. And I'm not going to do that quietly either. I'm going to make sure that I call him out. It's important that she decided to do this wide beam so that everybody hears it, right? And she knows that's going to get back to him. She knows that it's going to put her family and they already have, there's already people looking for them. There's bounties that they can collect. Now she's just making it personal, you know what I mean? So that is definitely something you love to see.
Exactly, and this is where I wanted to mention the video game as well, because we are going to play as drummer in this upcoming video game made by Telltale Games, and they make narrative-driven games where you have to make tough choices, and those choices sometimes affect how the story goes. So it's going to be more like a TV show, maybe a spin-off of The Expanse. I'm not sure about the time frame. So playing as drummer is just going to be awesome. And Kara G is, I think, still voicing this character. So keep your eyes peeled for that one, guys.
Yeah, that was the impression I got, that she would be voicing the character, and that you would. I think that I'm not familiar, I'm not familiar with a lot of gaming stuff, but I've heard a lot of different people talking about this, and it's got me pretty excited to check it out.
Yeah. We should also mention that drummer and company take the containers with them. So do you think this is going to solve the belt's supply problem for a little while at least?
Yeah, I mean, I think that well, they did say in the episode description of the next episode, which I covered in the last video I made and put out a few hours ago, that, I mean, it's not hard to put those two things together, right?
Yeah.
That Ceres needs some humanitarian aid, and drummer found herself with a large cache of pirate booty here that might solve that problem.
Yeah.
It's not vandalism. She didn't do this just to strike him by, destroying some of his stuff, you know what I mean? She went there with the purpose of taking it from him. This is theft and redistribution, so
yeah,
she's definitely going to be on Ceres in the next episode. We saw that in the teaser, so she'll be bringing that along with her for sure.
All right, anything to add here, or?
I just want to point out the one more Walker line here. So much for anonymity.
Yeah,
and it's kind of funny because he got pulled into this because of his love of being a pirate. That was my take on his character. Is that what you got as well?
Can you repeat that?
He got pulled into this situation because she appealed to his love of being a pirate. Like he wasn't political. He had personal grievances with Marco Inaros, but he was working for the Free Navy, and she was able to bring him over to her side because, hey, we might be able to steal stuff. You know what I mean?
Yeah, drama definitely played him there.
And he wanted to do this. He doesn't want to have his face out there, but it's kind of awesome here where you see that they pulled off this big thing. They got out of it. I mean, Joseph lost an arm, but they still were able to pull it off. And he also gets outed, but so much for anonymity. We're going to do this thing. We might as well do it right.
Yeah, he was just supposed to deliver Michio to a station, and this is where he is now. That's pretty funny.
Yeah, it is pretty funny.
All right, I think we can move on to the Zenobia. Monica's latest video is quite impactful as we see the Belter holding the cat saying how tired he is of all the fighting. He doesn't think there's a difference between the Inners and the Belters, because he says it's the people who want more hate and the ones that just want to live. So Monica flipped the script here because she was supposed to make Earthers look human. That was her objective given to her by Avasarala. And she realized that the opposite would have to be established to achieve that goal. This can't be a one-way street. So, what did you think about this scene and what Monica did?
Yeah, I like the way that she pivoted, and I think it's pretty, it was pretty telegraphed that she was going to try to put her own spin on what she was asked to do. She said, "I don't make propaganda," and it's kind of weird. I mean, Monica was a character that I thought came off pretty shady when she was first introduced. She was trying to sneak around the Roci and get information from, she was trying to shape that story in the way that was kind of sensationalize it a little bit. So in this case, you expect her to do her own thing, and I think that it points out that Avasarala is saying, hey, these Belters, these people over there, they need to look at us as human. And it's a thing that she's not capable of doing. Like, she's not able to return that. She's not able to see them as human, even though she says the right things and she has evolved as a character over the seasons. There's still a divide in her head that these people aren't going to be capable, these people, them, they're not going to be able to see us as humans. They're not going to be able to meet us where we are. It might be that boot that you put on their neck. You know what I mean?
Yeah, this also. Go ahead, Peter. You finish.
I was just saying that she has there's a glaring thing there that she can't see. So I like how Monica doing this. It really serves that role. And you have to love that the cat is named Lucky Earther, because that's the stereotype that everybody has of people on Earth. And we also, I think we identify the most with the Earthers, as far as who we would be if we were in the story. And, that's the stereotype, that they're given everything and it's so easy to be an Earther. You have all that free air. But think about some of the characters that we know that came from Earth. Think about Baltimore. Think about Amos. It goes both ways.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, just because you live on Earth doesn't mean you don't have any struggles. Yeah, that's something to keep in mind. And this reminded me of this difference between the Belters and Earthers. Reminding me of Delgado's joke from season 5. Do you remember that?
Oh yeah.
These stereotypes are, they have been long established, and Avasarala agrees that Avasarala thinks that it's not going to change. Belters will, never see the Earthers from a sympathetic eye, and Monica thinks the opposite won't happen either. So this situation is not going to be resolved by just a few propaganda movies.
But you still love the effort. You still love to see it in action here because she did a great job. This is
Obviously,
definitely pulls on the heartstrings and makes you feel something for these people. And of course, the explosions go off. The attack happens at that time, and we see them jump in, and they're helping each other. Everybody is on the same side in the heat of the crisis. And I just wanted to talk about this super chat here really quick. Ian Fitzpatrick, thank you for the $10. He's talking about the nuke again. Do any of you have suspicions that Filip or anyone on the Pella will recover data supporting that Holden deactivated the nuke? What effects might this have on Pella or Roci crew? I think that what we're going to talk about this in a second, and I'll get into it a little bit more, but I think that the idea that it was disarmed, it's an absurd. It would be. It's the thing about it is it's absurd to think that someone would do that in an active battle.
Yeah, Tadeo doesn't believe that happened. He thinks it was a mistake. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean the Pella was trying to kill the Rocinante, actively trying to erase them. So when you have the chance to fight back and take out your opponent, it's almost something that you can't process. You're like, why would anyone do that? And you leave it there. That's the natural progression of that thought is no one would. Why would anyone do that? No one would. That's it. That you don't really need to think about it too much more. But Filip is in a totally different situation because when he was trying to kill the Rocinante, he knew he was going to be responsible for killing his mother. So I think naturally he's going to think that it was her that deactivated it. Even if they never never find out, that's going to be his headcanon for the thing is that his mom didn't want him to die that way. What do you think about that?
Yeah, definitely, and we'll get to his speech to hype up the crew members. So I think he was trying to hype himself up there and convince himself because he realized that somebody on the Roci, probably his mother, saved him. So he feels guilty for that, I think, and I will get to that. Like I said, I think we should probably talk about Marco and Rosenfeld first before we get to that part.
Yeah, definitely. Let's do that.
We have a great conversation between Marco and Rosenfeld toward the end of the episode as she informs him that nobody was spaced as punishment. So Marco's orders weren't followed. That's tough.
Well, I'll interject there. The two highest ranking crew members on the Granicus were spaced, or on the Lauber were spaced. They executed those two. What he did was he gave that order, and then he said, when you tell the guy who is the captain of the Granicus to do this, if he comes to you and asks you to talk to me and ask for mercy, then I want him spaced as well. So she delivered this order that these two people, after he's there with them whenever she's giving it to him, they can't hear, but they're working together to get the ship in order, and he's going to throw them out of it before he leaves. That's the order that he's given. So Marco anticipates that he's not going to want to do that because it's murder. So he tells her that if he calls her and asks her to talk to him and change the order, then he wants him, and he does do that. He calls her and she decides not to space him, and that's where she makes the stand with Marco.
Well, I I completely misread that situation because I thought the first two guys on was it on Lauber? I thought they weren't spaced either. So sorry, I misread that situation. But still, the other guy Rosenfeld doesn't want him spaced, and Marco wonders what makes her think she can talk to him this way. She argues that somebody has to. And Marco appreciates her blunt nature and asks what she expects in victory if they win. And she wants the governorship of Medina. And once again, Marco's like, this gal is ambitious. So they share a drink together as they are in agreement now. Rosenfeld is a new character, but she's already earned Marco's trust. I think that has gone over a little bit too quickly for my liking.
Yeah, I was just thinking the exact same thing because the other question earlier brought up Saint Drani, and I think I think that we understand what's happening with this character, but I don't think they really did a great job of establishing why she's in the room in the first place.
Yeah, I think they had to, I think she's the XO, right? Second in command.
Maybe.
So an important character like this had to be developed a little bit more. So, maybe her backstory, how she came here, why she's on the Pella, being a Marco's Marco's a right hand woman. I don't know.
I'm of two minds about it because I thought that when I first watched the season, I thought, wow, people are really going to point out that who is this person? Why is this person here? If you read the books, you know that she came from the Voltaire Collective. The character is a little bit different, but they had their own faction, their own power within to bargain with the Free Navy. The Free Navy needed them, just like the Free Navy needed Sandrani's people. That's a little bit different too, but that was Anderson Dawes's people. Just like, when Fred Johnson was trying to do business, he needed Black Sky and he needed Anderson Dawes. There's all these different, it's made up of a bunch of different factions. That part's established, and that's where she comes from. She comes from one of those. It's just one that hasn't really featured in the TV series until now. And here she is. She's standing in, and we're supposed to understand that she's earned her way into the room. That part is the part that's hard to I think that they could have done better. What I think they're doing really good with the character, though, is that we can see how she is making herself essential and how she's noticing the deficits in what Marco has as far as being able to actually pull this thing off. And she's rising to the occasion of making that, trying to keep him from crashing and burning. Do you agree with that part of it?
Absolutely. I mean, we've been talking about, over the course of these 2 weeks since we started covering, since we started doing these live streams, we've been talking about how Marco has been acting emotionally at certain points, and he definitely needs someone like Rosenfeld. So her introduction is great in that sense, and I think the actor is doing a fine job as well. I do like the character, but they definitely should have built her up a little bit more before she got here.
Yeah, and I think if you go back and rewatch and you really pay attention to the dialogue and the introduction scenes and stuff, it's technically there. I think she all the information you need is there, but it's just not as readily as it's just not readily apparent in the way that it probably would have been if it was 8 episodes or they were each one was an hour long, or however you want to make the thing structure it so that there's more time and a little bit more room to breathe in some of these things.
Yeah. Also, just right now, I'm thinking, if Rosenfeld thinks, they can't win this war, and Marco, if she thinks this is a lost cause, I'm thinking, would she sell Marco out for in exchange for immunity? Maybe. I mean, I don't know if that's the thing, but I'm thinking maybe that's where this is heading. Rosenfeld betraying Marco. I'm not sure though.
It's
Just
a
a thought.
possibility. I guess
You
that
can't.
is one thing you pick up on the. I guess that is one thing you pick up on the character as they're fast thinking and resourceful. So I don't think that's a strange thing to speculate about. But like you said, you don't really know if that's even a possibility at this point.
Yeah, for example, this commenter says, I think she's loyal to the cause. She'll die with him. So people think about her differently, I guess.
Well, it's open. It's open. I think it's just open for interpretation because it's not really. We don't really know. You know, she's new. She's not. We don't know for sure what's going on. We know that here it's made explicit what she wants. Right? She wants to be the governor of the most important Belter held station.
Medina,
Probably
yes.
the most important thing. Yeah, probably the most important thing in the entire solar system. So we know what her motivation in that sense is. But we're just learning episode by episode what she's all about.
Okay, I think we can move on to Tadeo and Filip. They're eating in the mess when Drummer's message is going out and everybody is watching it. Filip attempts to rally the troops here with a speech about how Drummer is the enemy and this is war. He knows that it's kill or be killed. He has no other option, and neither do all of these crewmen and crewwomen. He's trying to convince himself more than anybody else, to be honest. Especially, when you see him walk away and he has that weird look on his face. You kind of sense that, this was almost a speech he gave to himself. Did you get the same impression?
Yeah, that was my take on it. And at first, I think they did a pretty good job, and I think the actor did a pretty good job of putting that there to be discovered. You could see him shift. He's really trying to get the idea out of his head first and foremost that he just got that his mother might have been behind deactivating the nuke. That we were just talking about that. He gets that information first, and you see that the wheels are turning. He's thinking about that. Then we get Drummer coming on and calling his father a clown, basically, and making him look terrible, calling him out, and he can't immediately strike back at her. So that's when someone talks about your dad that way, it's not really easy to process either.
And that makes me think, how do kids of famous people deal with reading comments about their parents all the time? That must be insane. I mean, I'm kind of going off a tangent here, but that must be insane.
So yeah, he's got a lot of stuff going on. Plus, his dad has him down working on like entry level position at the company. He totally demoted him down to the mailroom, basically.
Is this Succession now?
Yeah, and so here he is. He's got all this stuff going on, and then he hears Tadeo say that at least it wasn't the inners that hit the supply depot, and then he tries to meet the situation, and I think it's pretty obvious that his heart isn't 100% in it. He's not really, you see you watch his facial expressions. He's trying, but it's not natural anymore. He has to force it. And he's trying to say, of course this is right. Of course I believe this. Of course, and like you said, he's trying to convince himself as much as anybody else.
Yeah, and I'm not sure if we're gonna get more of Tadeo, but I really liked him. If this was just a, if this was just a one episode appearance, I'm glad they introduced him.
I think there were several references to his brother, and I thought that stood out to me a lot the first time. The way that he cared about his brother, the way that they had sort of that hard luck story where his brother was still a young man or a kid at the time, and he had to take him in because something happened to his parents. So I think that connection is something that's really front and center with that character. And it's hilarious because we didn't mention it before. I just wanted to come back to it. It's hilarious because he's like nobody. I mean, he has a little bit of he's above some people on the ship because he's, that's who Philip goes to. But he gets the son of the entire thing that he has to work with at that point. I thought that was hilarious the first time I watched it because he's like talking, he doesn't know who's there, and he's like complaining, and he's like, "Oh, hey, it's you." It's
Yeah.
like, you know what I mean? You can't tell Philip what to do really, but that's your job all of a sudden.
And then Rosenfeld comes in as well, and yeah, Tadeo doesn't know if Philip's gonna go away or gonna continue to work with him. Yeah, the situation they put him in was pretty funny, I guess.
Yeah, so the Philip, whenever I made the post yesterday asking what other people wanted to talk about besides Drummer, and I think we should probably talk about Drummer a lot more as well. But the idea of Philip comes up, and it's difficult for me because I read the books long before the series came out. So I always knew where I thought the Philip character would end up.
Huh.
It's kind of hard to discuss him with that information already in my head. What do you, I guess I'll ask you, you can be the stand-in for the viewers, and then they can actually just tell us in the comments. We can do a little Q&A kind of thing. But what would you like to see? The thing about Philip's character, and Marco as well, and I mentioned this before, so I won't go too far into it, but as characters, they've always been a little bit difficult for me when reading because they're just an extension of Naomi's story. They have lives, they have inner, we see there's point of view characters, we get their inner thoughts and how they see the world and everything else, but they wouldn't exist if it wasn't for Naomi and her position with the Rocinante. Does that make sense?
Yeah, no, I understand how.
It's a package. It's a package.
Yeah,
It's a family unit kind of thing where they don't exist if it isn't for Naomi. So it's hard not to, for me at least, and I'm not saying this in a bad way. I'm just saying that to talk about them as individuals is a little bit difficult because, of course, they're the way that they are because that is how it works. That's how it fits into the bigger picture as far as how Naomi became who she was. It's sort of like Holden and his family, like his parents, the way that he was conceived and the way that they lived on Earth before he ran away and joined the Navy. It's not so important other than it's a part of who he is, and that's a part of how he deals with the other people in his life as a result. And so with Philip, it's an he's a child soldier, and that's terrible, and he does a lot of really unforgivable stuff in that process, which, like you said earlier, it's tragic, right? There's not really a happy ending baked into that. There can't be in a lot of ways. But I guess so. At all of that is to say, what would you like to see happen for this character at this point?
honestly, I can't see any other way than to have Philip save the Roci in as basically to basically return the favor, because they purposefully made him aware that the missile might have been disarmed by someone on the Roci. He thinks it's, Tadeo mentions it's Holden, but Filip doesn't know what to believe. Maybe it was his mother. So I think that's in the back of his mind right now, because they want to set it up so that he has a reason to save Naomi when push comes to shove. And I think this will probably bring about Marco's downfall. Marco has put Filip through all of this. That's the reason he's a child soldier. And, Filip thought about how different his life might have been if Marco wasn't his father this episode. So I think there's a reason for that. And all of this thought process is going to lead to Filip betraying Marco. And that's what I think right now.
I mean, logically that makes sense, and I think that's a good way to. I mean, I guess that means that the character's working out how he should, because it's very hard to imagine him doing that. It's very hard to imagine what his life would look like if he wasn't the son of Marco and Naros.
I guess, there might be a way out of this where, maybe he doesn't have to sacrifice himself per se. Maybe he still betrays Marco, but he's able to get out because, he gives Marco up. Maybe that's what's going to happen.
Yeah, and as this comment here was pointing out, Filip is one of the main point of view characters in Book 6 in Babylon's Ashes. So you watch this transformation happen through his internal thoughts, his monologue. So, or his thought process is right there. Do you think that in the show they're doing a good job of keeping it a little bit mysterious, or are people enjoying this character? Do you like this character?
I do, but I think people are, 70% liking it, 30% not liking it. That's the impression I get at this point. Not sure why people wouldn't like Filip, because I think he's a great character. Like we said before, the actor looks exactly like how I would imagine Naomi and Marco's son.
Yeah.
And his story is interesting because, it's as basic as it gets. He's got a terrible father. His mother had to run away from his father, so all he had growing up was his father, and that has shaped his future. And meeting Naomi then, complicated things, and then she had to leave again. So, he went back to square one without his mother. And then, we had the conflict between him and Marco this season, where Marco blamed him. So he feels let down once again. And it kind of repeats itself, this story, but it definitely makes sense, and I've liked it so far. I can't really talk to if it was better in the books because it was from his point of view. But I think they're doing a good job, depicting his inner struggle. Yeah, just from a show perspective.
I think what's difficult about the character is that he's responsible for the atrocities. Maybe it's mostly his father, but he was there. He took an active role. And it makes it complicated to actually, like, you feel sorry for him, but it's not easy. It's sort of like a Jaime Lannister situation in Song of Ice and Fire. His character starts out by throwing a kid out off of the trying to cover up what he's doing with his sister. He throws a kid out of a tower, and cripples him for life. You know what I mean? Everything he does after that is still defined by that.
Yeah, that's always at the back of your mind. And I think, what Filip did wasn't, I guess wasn't as drastic as that, but
Well, I
when
mean,
we
he
first saw
played a
Filip,
role. He played a role in the rocks destroying Earth.
yeah, didn't he attack a UN ship when we first saw him, a UN research ship who was tracking the asteroids. I think that's how we were introduced. Yeah,
and he killed people there, and or maybe his people killed people, but he left his crewmate behind too, because there was a ticking clock situation, and Sin was saying, we got to go back, we got to try, and he was like, no, the mission needs to happen.
that's true.
He was sort of presented as a calculated and motivated, competent. He's a child soldier, but the soldier part is real. That's what I think you're supposed to take away from that.
Yeah, and at some point when when your mother comes to change your perspective and you don't do that, I guess then there's no one to blame but yourself at this current moment.
So I just want to acknowledge Sam Jovi, the $2 super chat. Thank you for that.
Thank you, Sam Jovi.
He's quoting Diogo there, I believe, right? And then we have another one from EO Seedman, $5. Thank you for that. It is very worthwhile to read the books, everyone. It would be fun to discuss with you all here if Pete has time to do book reviews. Yeah, I endorse this idea that everyone should read the books. I do plan on doing something book related once the show is concluded. I think there'll be more interest in what happens after, because not everybody right now, everyone is sort of focused on where we're at, and once it ends, it's going to be like, wait a minute, what happens after this? And I think that the books they're a really good companion to, even if you've already seen the show, it's a really good companion to get a little bit more. And the I guess where I have where what's difficult about the books, and what it has been for a while since it moved past the show as far as it has, is that season 6, book 6, it feels like it's so long ago from the book reading perspective. Like it's almost like you're going back and looking at something historical. Like this is a thing that happened. The war with the Free Navy is a thing that happened back in the old days. Does that make sense? Do you understand what I'm saying there?
Yeah, absolutely. Then
and it's weird. It's weird
I can't
because
imagine.
like
I can't imagine how you felt about Foundation then.
Yeah, well, I mean, Foundation, the story, the narrative jumps forward in time hundreds of years, but I guess what I'm talking about here is more like the mindset of when you think of all the characters. Like whenever I came to do season 5 and season 6, I sort of had to go back and sort of re-immerse myself in that part of the story and try not to think about what happens after, because like I said, in this season, whenever Bobby comes to the ship, it feels like, yeah, that's Bobby. She is, everybody knows Bobby. And because in the later books, she plays such a large role that you sort of have to go back in time with your thinking to say, hey, these people don't really know Bobby. They're just getting to, this is like her first time really being on the ship. So there's a ton of stuff that's like that in the book. So I want to just focus on season 6 until that's done. And then I definitely just finished, the 9th book. I read that a couple of days after it came out. I definitely want to talk about that stuff but I'd rather do it in a way where I'm just focusing on that part of the story instead of jumping back and forth. But
That makes
definitely
sense.
thank you for that. Definitely thank you for the suggestion. And I agree that people should read the books. And we'll see if we can't put something together after this season wraps up. I definitely think I will do a Laconia book related video, maybe before the end of the season or to come up, in with the end of the season. So we'll see about that in the next couple of weeks. Is this another one here too?
Yeah.
Okay. All right, Justin Merritt, thank you for the $10. Serious question, especially for book readers. The books and show never really got me to sympathize with Belter fanaticism. They seem like whiners. Discuss. P.S. No Belter is as likable as Jaime Lannister. Sorry to completely disagree with you, but I brought up Jaime Lannister because he's kind of a pet peeve character to me. Like I really like the way that he's written in the books, but I'll never forgive him for throwing Bran. Bran was always my favorite character in the early books, so I never have been able to forgive him for throwing Bran out the window. I mean, he's a spoiled rich kid with his banging his sister, and I mean,
You can stop there. We understand.
yeah, it's enough, isn't it? It's
Yeah.
enough. But I get it. I mean, there's a class distinction. The fanaticism. I mean, that's never really cool, no matter who's doing it. But I think I was pretty sympathetic to the Belters, at least in the books early on. I think they did a pretty good job of setting up the idea that these people are getting exploited and that you're not supposed there's the whole colonialism, and that's all pretty plain. It's not a big secret, you know what I mean? You see that there's these different gold rushes that happen in Soul System when they first start to go to the rocks and they start to mine, and it's just like the ones in our own history. The people who went to try to get rich in the gold fields, the people didn't. It was the people who sold them the shovels, right? That's the the people who had who ran the brothels and who sold them booze every night whenever they came back from working and trying to make their way. This is the same situation, and it's a little bit more extreme in that these people have been they've become different, physically different from people on Earth. You can notice them right away. In the show, it doesn't really come off that. In the show, you just see them as having tattoos and talking with this different, different kind of Creole that they use. But they're I think that it's, I think that they're supposed to be sympathetic, and I don't know. What do you think about that?
I struggle with this. I kind of thought like Justin a little bit when I started watching the show, especially, season 1, season 2. But as I got to know, as I learned more about, this whole, as I learned about this whole story, the soul system, how the Belters were, I suppose, exploited. And, you have to think, let's just say you were born on a Belter station and you know nothing about Earth. You're just born there and you're raised a certain way. You're thought you're exploited, and you are. So why would you I suppose why would you not hate the Earthers or the Inners? I think that it's natural for everybody on the belt to hate them. even if the exploitation wasn't as bad as it is, the situation they're in already, I think, is enough to hate the Inners. That's the feeling I have at this moment.
Yeah, and I think that early on, I think that's why it's why Miller is such an effective character, because he is a self-hating belter. He walks around in a hat that he tries to make himself look like an Earther. He tries to work for an Earther corporation. He's a traitor to his people, as it was pointed out in that first episode, where you kind of understand by seeing him and his situation why it's not that surprising that some people are more radical about their situation.
Yeah, and these things don't happen in a single instance. They take decades and different people to they don't suddenly get the Free Navy. They don't suddenly get Marco. It gets progressively more fanatic. So you got to look at it that way.
It's generational for sure. And I think a good story that's really short is Butcher of Anderson Station, which they did show in episode 5 of the first season, if I remember correctly. But if you read that story, it gives you more perspective on that, because of the fact that Fred Johnson is an Earther who is pulled in. We know him as the face of the nice OPA, whatever you want to call his faction, and their introduction, Anderson Dawes and his introduction is fantastic. It's really short, and they cover it really fast, but it gives you that impression of like why you should care about the Belters. We got another inquiring minds want to know. Thank you for the $5 again. Would you jump through the ring gate? Why or why not?
Great question. I think this depends on
important questions. I think it's an important question.
I think this depends on this depends on where you live on the Expanse universe. If I'm an Earther and my situation is good, if I'm wealthy, I'm not going anywhere. If I'm on Mars and I'm thinking this Mars experiment isn't going too well, I'm joining the breakaway fleet for sure. And if I'm on the belt, count me in. If there's even a 1% chance of finding a habitable planet, I'm going in.
Yeah, I would go through. I mean, I've always had wanderlust, so I think if I was alive in the universe, then I would definitely have already gone through the ring. First chance, I would be on a generation or a colony ship and ready to find myself completely disappointed with how difficult and awful these planets are.
I think
I think it's a great idea. I mean, just to see this place for the first time. One of my favorite things from a different show, For All Mankind, was whenever Gordo was on the moon and he was just walking around talking to himself, saying, "I'm the first person that ever saw this." I totally could relate to that idea. And so, yeah, I would be through the ring gates. I think that is for sure. But I think also whenever you got there and you realize you can't eat any of the food, you got to be careful. Everything is basically poison, and it takes months and months to get anything that you need brought into your community, that it would probably have a different feel at that point.
A commenter said, if you're a belter, you can't live on a planet. I guess that makes sense, right? But couldn't you find a planet that would suit your body with its gravity?
Oh, well, they don't really ever. That's not. I mean, the point of it is that, and I guess we saw this through Naomi. Some people just can't make the transition. It's a certain percentage. When they arrived on Illis, I think it was maybe 30% of the people had to stay on the ship forever in orbit. You know what I mean?
I,
So
I think you missed this one, Pete. That's why I brought it up. It was earlier.
yeah, I
This
wanted to come back to this one.
yeah.
Swingman, $20. Thank you. It's interesting. Earthers have no opportunity in billions of people. Martians live under the threat of annihilation from Earth. And Belters, above all else, need food, water to survive, but they have access to opportunity. Yeah, nobody. I mean, I think we touched on this a little bit when we were talking about Lucky Earther. The nobody's doing great here except for the people that are doing great, and it doesn't really matter where they're from. The capital class are still the ones that are benefiting from everybody else, and these people. I mean, on Earth, I one of the things I've always liked this about the books in the way that they kind of play off that. Like whenever Bobby first comes to Earth and she gets that idea of everyone being lazy and fat and getting everything for free. I mean, being on basic isn't nice. It's not something you want. It's not something that is just like, okay, you have this and you can do whatever you want. You don't even actually have access to currency or anything. You just get what you need to survive, which is not ideal, but it's the opposite of what they have in the belt, right? In the belt, they just want to make sure that they have those things. They just want to make sure they have air and water because they're going to die if they don't get it. So it's a pretty nice parallel, and when you look at the different people, and as you know, Martians, they kind of have that idea, hey, you know, we all work together and we're all in for the greater good, and we're going to do this thing, but they don't have a lot of, you know, individuality either. So it's I think it does a pretty good job of playing those different things against each other and having the characters realize that and have to question that themselves. Do you think so? I mean, is that something you get
I
from?
I absolutely agree, and because this is not a foreign concept. We don't have to think about fictional fictional pieces of art. This we have this situation on Earth because people on some continents can't even find food or water, while people on more affluent countries, they have what they need to survive, but they can't find happiness. And I suppose it depends on what you want from what you want from life. If you just want to survive because you don't have any basic supplies, that's what you will aim to get, and that's what belters want to get. And if you're an earther, you have everything, and not everything you need, but you're basically able to survive. At least you have food and water. But what is the point of life? What are you doing here? Well, that feeling, I think, must be incredibly daunting, because can you even imagine? Why would you go on? I mean, in that situation, why would you go on? What's the point? I guess the only thing keeping you going is your instinct to survive. That's all.
Yeah, and I think that's what makes Belter so compelling, isn't it? It's that you think that is, I mean, that is the ultimate. If you can't, knowing that you don't have enough water in X amount of time, and then knowing there's nothing you can do about it, it's frightening.
Indeed.
And I think I think this is where I kind of wanted to circle back around to Duarte, because that's one of the things we get from, we don't really get it laid out, but we don't get it completely defined, but you can see that he is taking that and he's saying, well, I have a different spin on it altogether. He's talking about losing that dream of the dream of Mars and how he thought that would be there forever. That was the existential crisis for Martians, right? That they had been keeping themselves going. They've been sustaining themselves with this dream that future generations would be able to have that same free air that they have on Earth, that those lucky Earthers, those lazy bastards, that they can just have that gravity and air and they can just walk around outside and jump in the ocean, and it's all taken away from them. And he has, it's easy for him to, and it's easy for him to say, look, it's not because of anything else. It's because of that old government on Mars. These people, they just weren't hardcore enough. We need to be just a little bit more hardcore and stick to these core principles, and we're going to be able to create the greatest society that has ever existed.
That makes me think this Duarte fella is gonna turn out pretty well then, because he's learned from his ancestors' mistakes. Am I getting that correctly?
Yeah, you're spot on there.
So,
No,
yeah,
I mean, he definitely sets off some red flags, doesn't he?
Yeah, the most scary thing about him is, he knows. It looks like he knows what he's talking about and what he wants, and that's the scary thing, because if a bad person has an objective in mind, a clear objective, and he has a roadmap, and he has the means, of course, to enact that plan, that is pretty scary. So I'm really wondering where that's gonna go, but that's the sad thing. We're not gonna see this on a TV show, at least for a while.
Yeah, and it takes time for something like that to develop. I mean, they're in Strange Dogs. They just arrived on the planet. There is no time for anything to develop yet. There hasn't been any time for anything to develop yet. I just want to change gears for a second to thank you, Pierce Weber, for the $4.99 super chat. This one, they don't have a question. This one to say thanks, and they give you a little shout out there, Benja, for your Yellowstone videos.
Thank you, Pierce. I expect to see you on my 1883 videos as well. That show just started as well. I think, we mentioned a different TV show here, so I wanted to bring up this comment as well. David Lincoln says, what is your favorite TV show besides this? Mine is Yellow Jackets. I think he's talking about recent shows. Do you have anything in mind?
I think I'm all in on Station 11. That's the only thing that's really caught my attention. I haven't seen Yellow Jackets though. I've heard good things, but I wasn't aware of it when it first came out, and then it became a situation where there was already a handful of episodes, so I just haven't been able to. Each week it gets harder to jump in because I know I'll be watching like 5 or 6 or 7, 8. You know what I mean?
Yeah, just let it end and do
check it out. Yeah, I definitely want to check it out. I've been doing Dexter. That's the other show I've been doing. So a lot of people have been bringing that up on those videos that they'd like to see something. But yeah, I haven't had a lot of time to really watch just for fun lately, but I've been really enjoying Station 11.
The show I'm watching for fun at the moment is that I'm not covering is a show called Travelers. I think it's available on Netflix. I'm not sure if it is that way in every single country, but I wasn't expecting a lot from that show. But I like the way they it feels like they all have, the standalone episode, like procedurals. It feels that way, but they also have multi-episode arcs, and they also have season-long arcs, and they also have multi-season arcs. So the way they mix all of those stories together is quite interesting. It's about a time traveler, so that's a good start right there. So you might want to check that out. I haven't finished it yet.
That's the first time hearing of it, honestly. I don't think I heard anybody else mention that.
Yeah, I think it was canceled because, the name is incredibly generic. Travelers, and what a name. But yeah, that's what I've been watching. And 1883, like I said, that just started. I think that's a good show. Sam Elliott's in it.
Can't go wrong with Sam Elliott.
What did you say? Sorry.
I said you can't go wrong with Sam Elliott. We had that conversation off stream before.
Absolutely, yes. And in general, I think I don't want to go on for too long, but in general, Dark is one of my favorite shows. Another one is
me too, obviously.
Another one is Bosch. The last season was a little bit disappointing, but that's easily the best cop show ever. And in terms of comedy, oh yeah, you should. But it's too long. I think you might not have time. But yeah, that's it. I don't want to go on for too long.
Yeah, Bosch, they dropped screeners in my account, and I was looking at it. It said season 7. I said definitely not starting that.
Maybe when you retire
60 plus hours to get caught up with that.
Yeah, maybe when you retire.
The Swingman says that you should definitely check out Arcane. Thanks again for the $2. I've heard a lot of good things, but I haven't. I'm
kind of biased because
not watched.
It's about League of Legends, a video game that I hate. I mean, not because it's a bad video game, but I don't like that style, so I don't think I'll watch it.
I agree with Sabco BDS that Dark is definitely the best Netflix original.
Absolutely.
Their new show will be out this year, 1899.
Oh, that might be quite interesting as well.
Not to be confused with 1889, which is the show you're covering right now.
The 1899 guys must be, thinking, oh my goodness, why did they have to come out
just first? Year for TV shows with 1800 in the title.
Yeah. This one's good as well, by the way. Watch Continuum if you like Travelers. I watched it as episodes aired weekly. That was Continuum. That's, I think, a Canadian show. That was pretty good as well. But
what is this? What is this? What is this right here? What is this? It's not Netflix original.
No, not sure. I think maybe it's not a production. They haven't produced it. Maybe.
Okay,
I'm not sure.
It seems like a weird comment.
Interesting.
It definitely came out on Netflix, so I didn't know
they're the distributor for sure. Absolutely. I mean, I'm just looking at, the production company. Yeah, it's Weidman and Berg Television. I think that's what he's talking about. Being really pedantic.
Yeah,
but,
okay.
Yeah, but the distributor is Netflix.
So let's think about. Oh, there's another one here. Let's see what this says. Thank you again, Sam Jovi. $2 on Apple TV. C with Jason Momoa had me reeling. This is one I've never watched. Have you seen this?
No, I've heard good things about it, but my friends are trying to convince me to watch, but I haven't.
I heard mixed results or mixed reviews. That's why I never really picked it up, because I heard that it was a slow starter and the premise didn't sound that interesting. But yeah, some people seem to really like it.
Maybe it would have been better as a book. I'm thinking. I haven't watched it, but the concept seems like it would be better in a book.
Yeah. let's try to. I think we should try to bring it back around
Sure.
to the Expanse here, because we could definitely get way off topic there.
And yeah, it's getting pretty late as well, so I think
Yeah,
we
and
should
we
give
do
our
need to
final
wrap it.
thoughts.
We do need to wrap it up. So let's do this. If you're in the chat right now, thank you for supporting the channel. Thank you for sticking around. Let's throw us off some Expanse season 6 episode 4 questions if you have any, and we'll try to get to a couple more before we wrap this up, because I get up super early in the morning to do this. Ben just stays up super late at night where he is, and I can feel that my energy is starting to decline with every minute that passes from here on out. So let's see what we can do as far as questions and what you want to talk about. I mean, drummer is this episode was drummer, wasn't it? I mean, that was the
Absolutely.
big takeaway.
Yeah, I just wanted to, after watching this, I just wanted to watch your drummer video, because I didn't actually watch that one. The one you did
Yeah.
before the season kicked off, I think.
Yeah.
I immediately thought, I should probably watch this now, because this episode was awesome. Yeah, we could have made the stream all about drummer. It was that good. And I already talked about how excited I am about playing that character in a video game, and seeing her here, fleshed out even more. Yeah, in season 5 as well. That has been a really great experience, and I think this is going to be how we remember her. This speech and the supply depot sequence. It's definitely gonna stick with me.
Yeah, I definitely don't want to jump ahead. I did make the teaser video about the upcoming episode and all that goes along with that. I don't want to get into that here, but yeah, I thought that this like where she's at is, it all made a ton of sense, and it's just a great situation for a character that, I mean, the thing about drummer here is that she has respect among the Belters. When she says something about Marco, people are going to take that to heart. But then there's still this situation of like, the other side is the inner planets. So she can't just exactly team up with them. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But I thought that, I mean, the Joseph thing, it was shocking. It was gruesome. I'm glad that they did it the way they did it, because that gave the chance for Michio to come back in, and for her to be an integral part of their family. I didn't think that was, I mean, do you think that it was did that feel like a big loss? Did Joseph losing his arm, did that feel like it's for some of the other stuff that Kamina's already experienced in her story, it's kind of, it kind of felt like a side note to me, or just sort of like, yeah, okay, well, you can, Amos had his hand shot off, he grew a new hand, like, kind of like, buck up, dude, there's other stuff going on here.
Yeah, since it's going to grow back, in that sense, I guess her radio message here was kind of over the top, right? But I get it. I mean, even the prospect of losing Joseph might have affected drummer, so maybe that's why she's reacting this way.
Oh, that brings up, I just want to, this is a little off topic, but I was really surprised when I watched this season that they didn't bring Oksana back in any way in these episodes. Did you, as you're watching these first episodes, were you looking for her? Did that seem like unresolved plot thread, or what did you think about that?
Right now, I can't. Oksana, who is she?
Remember in the finale last season,
Oh
whenever
yeah, yeah, yeah,
her family
yeah.
split up, half of her family went away, and it's like,
I
here we
forgot.
are
Yeah, I
for
forgot her name. Yeah.
here we are 4 episodes in of 2/3 of the way through the season, and there's really not been any mention of them. I found that surprising, and when I
I think
watched it the
I
first time.
I think I didn't find it. I guess I forgot about her completely because you know, as my reaction suggested there.
Uh,
So I didn't really miss her. Didn't look out for her. So yeah, I'm not too sure
yeah,
about that because
yeah, I was
some of
curious because
some of the drama last season with her kind of irritated me a little bit, and I was glad she was gone. So I didn't I didn't look out for her once this season started.
yeah. I see you pulled up this question about Marco's tattoos. Do you know the answer to that question?
No, I don't. That's why I actually brought it up. I want to know too.
I'm a little bit. Did anyone sound off on this in the comments? This is something that Keon Alexander has talked about, but I've never really paid close attention to. So I think the answer is out there, but I don't actually. I've never really heard the way he explains it. The way that I would think, the reason I would think that it's that way is because Marco wants to present himself in a way that is he has enough sense to know that if he wants to have real power, he has to resemble real power. I think it would
Hmm.
be the way to describe that.
Is it
So
is he
he's a
like this on in
belter.
the books?
Well, yeah, he's a belter. He through and through. He came up as just as you would, and then I think he makes a conscious decision to be able to. I know you get this from Naomi's chapters that he's learned to present himself in a way that isn't offensive to people in the inner planets. Like when he gives a speech, you don't hear his belter accent as much as you would
Hmm.
if you know.
Yeah,
Does that make sense?
that makes a lot of sense. Yes. And Skittles asks, did there? Yeah, didn't read the books yet, but Duarte feels creepy. Am I reading him wrong? From a non-book reader perspective, I have the same feeling, and I think Pete can talk about this better.
Yeah, I think we did talk about that in the beginning when we were talking about him, and he is creepy. That going and talking to an 8-year-old kid at her brother's funeral that way, I feel like that's a conscious choice by the writers to make you wonder what's up with this guy.
And Sam Jovi asks with another $5 super chat. Thank you, Sam Jovi. Since their chemistry in Laconia is different, can they drink the water there? Or so they have to stay away from the aqua?
I don't know if it's a serious question or if they just wanted to
Yeah,
throw that
I
that
think.
that reference out there again.
Yeah,
But
I don't think it was
water,
serious.
yeah, water is the same everywhere. That's what it's necessary for life. The difference is that as the tree of life establishes itself, there's a lot of different evolutionary decisions, things that happen by circumstance that make chemistry incompatible across the different trees of life that have evolved. That was one of my favorite parts of book 4 was all of the exobiology stuff from Elvie
All
when
right.
she got to Illis.
Do you have any questions you want to answer, Pete?
I'm trying to look at them here. I don't see anything that's jumping out at me.
Yeah, and it's getting pretty late here, so
Yeah,
I
we're
think
we're gonna have to wrap this up, and I want to thank everyone that came out we're trying to get a little better each time. Next week, I think we'll go back to a day earlier, like we have
Monday,
been.
right?
Yeah, but I think for the finale, we might try to do it right after that happens, like that day or the next day or something like that. I have to get my recap put together once the show comes out, so we'll have to see how that works. But I'm definitely enjoying this format. I was definitely sleep deprived, so I hope that it was still a fun time. It was worthwhile. We'll definitely be continuing to do that. So let us know in the comments what you want to see in the future. Do you have anything else you want to plug? Anything?
Yeah, sure thing. You can check out my channel, Benja TV. Like I said, I cover 1883 at the moment. Billions is going to come back later this month. There's also Resident Alien. Maybe I'll cover Peaky Blinders because season 6 is coming out soon, early 2022, from what I understand. So yeah, I cover a lot of crime dramas and some sci-fi. I'll cover the finale of The Expanse, for example. So definitely check out my channel. And thanks for reminding me again, Pete. These have been just great. I've been dealing with the loss of The Expanse better because of these streams.
Yeah, I whenever I do my recap, I try to do that for across the spectrum so that everyone can look at what happened and then, draw their own conclusions. So it's nice to be able to talk about what what I'm really thinking about whenever I'm watching some of these different things, because I think they're doing some great character work this year and in this season. I think that some of this stuff has been fantastic to think about. It kind of sticks with you in a way that it definitely is worth taking a second look at and looking a little bit closer at how these characters are getting through this situation. So it's been a lot of fun. Happy that I was happy that you were interested in doing this with me and that everybody's been coming out. So I think that's a great place to leave things. Thanks for watching, guys. We'll talk to you next week.